All right, this is the first lesson for our Unit 4 on functions. This is identifying functions. This was a Done with Teacher worksheet. So we're going to talk about how functions are related to slope, the unit we just came out of, and how looking for patterns can help you not do as much math when you're dealing with functions. So a function is a rule that assigns each input exactly one output. What that means is what you put in, you should get out one result. Functions occur when every x value is associated to every y value. So one x for one y. Now, when we're looking at tables and ordered pairs, a way to test if a table or ordered pairs is a function, you want to see if each input, so a lot like the top, or x value has exactly one output, also known as your y value. And if we're looking at graphs, if a graph represents a function, it should be able to pass what we call the vertical line test. Oh, my pen is acting all silly right now. Vertical line, oh my goodness. All right, vertical line test. Hopefully you can read that. Which means it can pass through the graph at exactly 1 point. All right, so let's look at some examples now so you can see how this all works with the actual math. So when we're looking at a table here, to define if it is a function, we only want to look at the x row. Don't worry about the y's. Just look at the x. You want to see if any of these numbers repeat. -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. None of those numbers are identical. They're all different. Now they both have 2's, but one's a negative, one's a positive. That's not the same. So since none of these numbers repeated, it is a function. You can have repeated y's. Like here, you see the 2 1's. That's okay. I don't care about the y's. You only want to worry about the x's. So what that means is I put in one value, I get out one value. You don't want -2 over here, and let's say this is -2 as well, and this was a -7. That means if I put in -2, I could get a +7 or a -7. That's not a function. All right, let's look here at number 2. We have some ordered pairs. Now, if you remember, it's always x, y. So again, your x's cannot repeat. So look at all your first digits in your ordered pairs to see if any of them repeat. Well, this one has a -2, and so does this one. Now, because they have 2 different y's, that's what makes it not a function. I cannot put in one value for x and then get 2 answers for y, 2 completely different answers for y. That doesn't work. All right, now this down below here is when you use your vertical line test. So we have a graph here, and I'm going to try and kind of darken this graph up a little bit. You're not looking at the coordinate grid. You're looking at the line of the graph. So this red line. The vertical line test means I can draw a straight line down anywhere on this graph, and I should hit the line only at one spot. So right there, and right there. So no matter where I drew that line, it only hit the graph one time, which makes this a function. If it hits the graph multiple times, then it's not a function. So let's look at this one. I'm going to darken up our graph here just to make it more visible. Now, if I draw my straight line down, no matter where I draw it, I'm going to hit this graph at multiple points. 1, 2, 3 there. 1, 2, 3 there. 1, 2. So the minute I hit more than one spot on this graph, it makes it not a function. All right, and again for this last one, we have a line here. If I take my vertical line test and I pass through anywhere on this line, you'll see that I only hit it once. So this one is a function. And that's it. No math, just have to know the rules. So when we talk about equations, equations are the same way. That every time you have an input, x, you should only get one output of y, which means something like 2 times 2. 2 times 2 only equals 4. It has never equaled anything else but 4. That's a function. I put in 2 times 2 and I get out one answer. Not a function is if I put in 2 times 2 and I get out 5 and 4. What? 2 times 2 can be 2 answers? That's not a function. So let's look here. I'm just going to plug in a number for x. I'm going to say 4. So y equals 4 squared. Well, if I did 4 squared on a calculator, I would get 16. I'm not going to get any other answer but 16. So I put in 4, I get out 16. This is a function. There's only one possible solution for 4 squared, and that's it. Now let's look here. If I use that 4 again, let's say I have y squared equals 4. Well, to get rid of a square, I need to take the square root. So I'm going to square root both of these values. And when I do that, y squared becomes a y, and the 4 becomes a positive 2 or a negative 2, because 2 times 2 gives me a positive 4, and I have a positive 4 there, or negative 2 times negative 2 gives me a positive 4. So that means I have one solution, two solutions. One input, but 2 possible answers being a positive 2 or a negative 2, just made this not a function. Now, let me see if I can teach you a little rule here. If you noticed here, our x was squared and our answer was a function. Over here, my y was squared and my answer was not a function. So what could be the possible rule here? The cheater rule, if you want to call it that, how I call it in class, your x's can be squared, that's okay. Your y's cannot be squared. Because what does y squared mean? It means there's 2 y's. I can't have 2 y's. I can't have 2 answers. I can have 2 x's, but I cannot have 2 answers, okay, or 2 inputs. Like I can have 4 times 4. That's what I mean by 2 x's, but I can't have 2 possible answers, and the y is the answer. So anytime you see a y squared, game over. It's instantly not a function. So let's look at number 8. We don't even need to do any math. If you notice, right away we have a y squared. So automatically, this is not a function. All right. Now in class, that's as far as I went with you guys. You guys are to do 9 through 14. These ones I will grade. I do want you to explain your answer. So you're going to tell me function or not a function and tell me how you knew. And then don't forget to do your summary at the bottom. You need 2 sentences telling me 2 new things you just learned. And that concludes this video tutorial.